Hello and welcome to the Intentional Clinician Podcast. I'm your host, Paul Krauss, licensed professional counselor. In today's episode, I'm going to be interviewing Doug Bale about art, mental health, and personal expression, along with a bunch of other cool stuff like philosophy, community, and other things related to the art world, as Doug Bale is an artist. So thank you, Doug, for letting me come into the studio here. We're on 7th Avenue in Phoenix. And so you can hear a little traffic in the background. That's because we are in the artist studio. So Doug, thanks. Welcome to the show.
You're more than welcome. Thank you, Paul, for inviting me into your podcast world.
Absolutely. Well, it's my pleasure, Doug. And I wanted to kind of get started with a little bit of a backstory, which is we met a long time ago, which was, I don't know, 2008, I want to say.
Yeah.
And
it's almost like there's no way we wouldn't have met, but yeah.
I agree with that based on the story.
Pretty weird.
We met at an interesting, now defunct coffee house named Drip Coffee on 7th Street, not 7th Avenue, for anyone who knows geography. And we met there, and we soon learned that we had occupied the same casita, or in English, guest house.
Right.
By an interesting, strange owner in an alley nearby.
Yeah.
Alley access only with a nice yard.
Oh, it's a great little spot when he fixed it.
Yeah, he fixed it up when
I
got
I don't want to trash talk this guy. I don't remember his name.
It was a different owner, so I don't even know the original owner, but I know we were right near the light rail, which got installed in 2009.
It is a primo spot and a cool little thing. And I was saving up money to buy my first house, and I had that advertising job, and we met. And I got out of there, though, because he had, some sort of, air conditioning unit wasn't even on. There's a flue or something. There's something completely open. It was the dead of winter here in Arizona, which I know we're pretty wimpy here, but it was freaking cold. And I kept telling him, man, no matter how I turn the heat, it's 50. It's really cold in here. And he's like, well, it's rustic. I thought you were tough. And I'm like, what are you talking about?
It's in the lease. I thought you were tough.
Yeah, I'm like, there's something wrong. And then I moved out, and we squared up, and he wasn't a jerk that way. And then he's like, oh, you're right. I'm sorry.
The ceiling was open. I'm sorry.
Yeah, it was like an open ceiling behind a wall, and it was like a nightmare for me for a couple months, and I got out of there. But it was nice. And then we met, and then I was like, wow, I lived here, because you were already living there.
Yeah, I was like, I live in this casita down the street. And you're like, wait a minute, what casita down the street? And then we realized it was the same casita, which was an interesting situation.
We were blown away that we both noticed the weird scribblings on the wall. Everybody
That's true.
Anybody in there would have noticed, I don't know what it said in there. But
I forgot about the weird scribblings on the wall until you just said that. So there were weird scribblings. We both lived there. It was in between a lot of interesting urban uptown things and then the downtown Phoenix, which has the stadiums and a bunch of restaurants. And it was an interesting place. And there was a lot of dirt lots. And now it's basically become LA. They plopped about, 17 new buildings in the area.
In the area.
Yeah. Oh, the casita's still there, I think.
Yeah, no, it's a primo spot. That big lot's awesome.
Yeah, so that was an interesting thing. So it was kind of like the universe brought us together.
There, and everybody pull in, and there's parking for a whole band in your back lot.
That's true. There was parking for about 8 cars.
And you stayed there
5 years.
Correct me if I'm wrong, for the majority of the time you're here in Phoenix.
Yeah, the majority of my life in Phoenix. I did live in Central Phoenix in the casita because I loved it, and it was a lot of fun. And then when I got married, I moved into a condo that we rented, which was fun.
Yeah.
Not as crazy, a little bit more
no, probably
standard, a little bit more standard housing.
Yeah. You're rustic and hardy and tough. So it was, You're actually more tough than me.
The heat did work when I lived there, so I don't know. So anyway, there's that, and we did. We have a long history. Even though you didn't play bass, you were my bassist for a few albums and
couple of
live shows
for one season.
And I was your backup band for your project.
Yes,
which we'll talk about later.
Sure.
And also the backup studio band for your one CD.
Yeah.
That we
was
did
so
together.
Fun.
And so we have a lot of history here. We'll probably bring up more as we go, unless you got more right now.
I want to stay on this subject, Paul.
Okay.
No, I feel like you're leaving out the most important thing.
Which is that I made you sign it in. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I forgot about that. No.
I forgot about that.
That's just because you know what
non-disclosure agreement.
That's because you know what you're doing.
Yeah. Well, if you could think of more things, go for it. But we had many a fun night in the art scene.
All I'd like to say,
right,
in retrospect, is you're a good person because I did not know how to play bass. I know I can play most things by ear, but I didn't know how to play bass the correct way.
And that was okay because it sounded great.
Hopefully.
Actually, I think not playing the correct way was what I needed at the time.
I've based several semi-pro careers on doing things the incorrect way.
Well, that's
or my way.
It's all good. My way is
Sinatra's
sometimes
way.
the best way.
Yeah.
So we did do that, and then we spent a lot of time, kind of you're in the art
ruffians.
scene.
We were riding bikes. I was, I would, transport your. If we didn't finish a meal or a burrito, I'd put it in my glove box. It was the best of times.
It's like a heated glove box, yeah.
So I had to get my glove box modified for your lack of being able to finish a meal, Paul. At a restaurant, she'd just be like halfway. I'm like, come on, Paul. I'm not putting your tape.
In my defense, these burritos are massive. And it makes Chipotle look like a joke. I think Chipotle came up with the idea after visiting Phoenix.
Yeah. We are a burrito. We're an everything town now. For your international listeners, come to Phoenix.
Oh.
No, I don't know.
Did the mayor put you up to this?
I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay, so.
Yeah.
Interesting. So, the summary is, we'll probably get into it, is that we spent a long time in the art and music scene of Phoenix, which is ever evolving and deconstructing and crumbling, but then growing back together again, and knew a lot of mutual people. And as your career changed from more music to more digital art, then to painting, I've been following that, and you've had a lot of gallery shows, so that's been really interesting.
And part of this growth here in Phoenix, I think, at least the face of it can be these murals, and I was lucky enough to do a mural at Trans Am down on Grand Avenue.
Well, let's start there.
Okay.
So there is a large mural. I don't know how large. How large is it?
It's almost 20 feet high, and it was my first big-time mural.
It can be seen from the highway.
Basic, if you're really looking.
If you're looking. Right.
And I don't know how you are looking if you're driving safe.
It's at a really fun place called Trans Am, which is a coffee and gallery on Grand Avenue.
Yeah. Grand Avenue has developed into like a really nice strip of road. Galleries, coffee shops, record shops, the old bikini lounge, not the old nude bikini lounge. It's been there for years. Amazing DJs still play there. And as you go down Grand, it's just filling in really nicely as far as an arts community. Arts parades, arts festivals, just so much in Phoenix. So,
yeah, and then that was a big honor. I think even the news had your mural on there as the most Instagrammable mural in Phoenix.
I don't know about that. I'm just lucky to be in some good company, amazing company. They're just super. What's a good superlative, Paul?
Friendly? I don't know.
No. As far as like you're the top of your game, yeah.
Talented.
There's some amazing talent in Phoenix, muralists. So I'm just lucky to be mentioned in some articles recently in Art Detour and to have that mural up. Also, I want to mention Megastroni and Problem. Those are there at Megastroni, at Problem, at Trans Am. That's how you do this. Those guys came in and painted beautiful stuff next to mine, and it turned into a really cool, amazing piece without really planning it. So,
yeah,
boom.
Boom. Sorry, I was just adjusting the microphone.
That's okay.
And I like it a lot. So let's delve into this. So we're talking about art, mental health, philosophy, sort of things. So one of the things that you mention often is that you're just part of whatever's going on. You'll see if you can be a part of that or whatever. So tell me a little bit more about kind of the community aspect,
or
the background of why we even are doing this. Or let's talk about the community aspect of art.
Yeah, it might be kind of my naiveness or kind of a dingbat mentality, but in a way that's a good thing. For one foot in front of the other. When I was younger in Tempe, I loved the Tempe music scene. Dead Hot Workshop. I get that band Refreshments that went on to be pretty famous. I'm like, hey, I got a band. I want to open for you. Here's my tape. And I was never like, big time in any of those scenes, but I got to be in those. And there's something about those that I think the artists and people love. Like if you're a plumber, which I think most things are art, but if you're anything and you're in that community, I got to be in that community. I get to be in downtown Phoenix community, and it's kind of an on-off thing, but my mental health and my joy have been better being a part of it. And I encourage everybody I encounter who likes my art or I like their art, at least the first couple times I'm nice. And I encourage, I'm like, wow, you should do a show here. This is who I know. How can we collaborate? And that's a really fun, that is community, I guess. But sometimes I won't be in the community and I'll be isolating and I'll be dealing with my mental health issues, depression, anxiety, and even more recently with my more recent diagnosis of bipolar. And forgive me, but I don't know whether it was 1 or 2 or 3 or whatever they have. But it's kind of coming to grips with that stuff. The community helps, and it helps you to be doing something instead of stewing in some of these problems.
Well, that was a very good summary and I appreciate you being honest and open about some of your struggles.
Sure.
And I know that there's so much research that I won't quote correctly on here, but about if you feel connected to a group that feels safe to you,
yeah,
and isn't like some sort of demanding cult or whatever you want to call it.
Right, it's different.
It depends on your cultural background, but if you feel open and accepted in a group and you're participating in some sort of group something.
For me, hopefully I'm getting to that level where it is a professional community.
Sure.
And I have peaks and valleys, chutes and ladders where I'm more professional and perform better. But I also I kind of still am at this point where I see a difference between that pressure professional community and a calling community, or like being able to, what your calling is or what you'd love to do without money being an issue. So I think that's important. There's a lot of pressures in communities now too, and in professional guilds or whatever. And it's kind of like a salad bar, or what you put into it, you get out of it. So I have the luxury of kind of being in it, hopefully at a good level, but I can also pump the brakes, which I think is important too for your community and your mental health. If you have to know there's sub-communities and there's other people where you're not out in the open and as vulnerable, where you can get help too. So
that's true.
So I like to make that point here. I use salad bar as a metaphor lots of times. If you find out you're allergic to something or something's not working, sometimes you have to be less in the community. I think the main goal is for your mental health to have as many not advocates, but support,
like connections.
Yeah,
supportive
places. Like you can have a counselor, you can have the book you're reading.
Sure.
Those aren't necessarily community. I have the luxury now where I'm in a lot of more in the community, and it's positive. But I just want to, because of my experience, I want to also put it out there, you can drop out of the community too, and don't worry about it.
Well, yeah.
Right, for me, I'm right back there. Everybody's like, "Hey, Doug, awesome. Where have you been?" But sometimes with what I deal with, paranoia or bipolar, or depression, you're just like, I can't be in the community right now.
Well, and there's no balance to achieve, really. But I think it's important to note that while we were talking about the importance of community and how that can help your mental health, it's not a one-size-fits-all. And that's why I said I was joking about like a cult or some sort of community that's putting pressure on you. And what that means. So what I mean is, I guess, trying to find the correct balance for you, which you said counselor, book.
Right.
And something I've been reading about lately, and Dr. Bill Plotkin's books are actually taking a time to be in nature, isolated on purpose, to sort of examine your inner parts of yourself, and doing an intentional weekend away from the city or whatever, and just kind of being by yourself and being with your thoughts and exploring your feelings. That's important too. So. But it is positive, I think, that you got involved in the community in the way that works for you, which is in the arts community. I'm sure there's meetings and there's gallery showings and there's other things, but there's not like you can leave for a time and come back. And I'm assuming people contact you and wonder where you're at. I mean,
luckily, I've had that. I've been pretty lucky, and kind of forgot where I was going. My next comment.
Oh, okay.
But like, yeah, like, I mean, because of what you do, and you've helped me as a friend and as, you know, someone with good advice, and obviously that's your career, and I admire that you help so many people, and I appreciate, you know, the support just as a friend. Like, friends can do it too,
Sure.
even if they're not counselors or doing what you do. But, you know, I manage my mental health with diet and with exercise because I have a really hard time with some of the medications. I'm not advocating that for anybody else. Like
Sure.
you said, it's how you deal with it. I know that meditation and yoga and working on art, which I can touch on later, I mean, it's a godsend. I mean, I've kind of shifted to art therapy. I'm doing art therapy when I'm working on art and realizing that. And that can morph again into back just enjoyment. But it's a salad bar. You got to do what you need to have a balanced plate to deal with, you know, your issues.
That's a good point. And just to deal with life and what's being thrown at you, and we're ever changing and ever evolving situations, and as organisms we're always changing. So I've seen that your art has changed a lot, and one of the key points is, I think, you know, we're talking about art, and I know some people listening may not feel like they're an artist, and I think we've talked about that before, about art is so many things, and you're going to talk about that more and your influences, but it's about also just expression. It's personal expression, and it doesn't have to be a gallery-ready piece. I know that you made art, I can't remember, you were making something like 3 to 4 things a day for a long time that you weren't even publishing, that you were just like sending to us friends.
Bothering my friends.
You were just like, hey, look at this collage I made.
Look, I drew a turkey with my outline of my hand.
Right, and I was like, oh, cool. Is that going to be in
job.
your show? And you're like, no, this is not for the gallery or
Wow.
whatever. And you were just doing it, and it's kind of like the same thing when I would write a song and just like record it on my phone or something and send it to you guys, like, oh, hey, I'm working on this, and people are like, oh, you're gonna record it? I'm like, I don't know. You know, I did record it. It's just not in a form that would be appealing to the masses, most likely.
Yeah.
So I like that you know, it's about, if it's not art for you, it could be something else. But what is something that you're using to express your inner feelings or even your reactions to changing circumstances in your life? So I like that you're talking about that, because it's not a panacea. It's a part of your, it's part of your life, and it can be integrated in a way that helps you live a life where you feel more balanced and happier, whatever you want to call it. Not happier, healthier, whatever you want to call it.
Well, happier is healthier.
Sure.
I mean, yeah. So, you know, a year and a half ago, I had this call center job. I used to have a kind of a higher pressure, higher strata advertising sales job, and I made what I'd call is a reasonable amount of money and a livable amount of money. And then I kind of made some career moves, and then I noticed I was just having harder and harder time being in that corporate environment, probably echoing a lot of sentiments of what a lot of people have been hearing for years as we all kind of move into like trying to, you know, make commerce out of what we like to do. But then, you know, I kind of just took a break. I had the luxury to take a break. I got to paint that mural, and as this year's gone by, you know, I've probably done more commerce with my art this year than any year in my life. And it's hard to realize that because each time I've been equating it with success with money. And there's all these things that are shifting for me. The other thing with my art, and, you know, if I'm wandering, we'll come back, but I used to do a lot of art about my anxiety and negativeness, and I felt like this energy art's coming out of me now, and abstract art is a great way just to deal with feelings. And I like putting out a piece of art that has a positive energy or vibe to it, and it is in with alignment with what I'm feeling. So for me, it's almost a way to monitor, you know, some of my my thoughts and my energy too. So
Sure.
Which is like it's its own counselor, it's its own psychiatrist. It's great to have that. It's great to have this kind of a self-adjusting activity that just also happens, you know, to feel like my calling and to feel really good to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
And maybe that just happens. Like if you're doing your calling, you're not miserable each day. Like I love meeting someone who just loves what they do. And I had that for a little while in advertising sales, but the corporate structure crushes it. And my style was friendly, and my style was service oriented, which you want to do anyways, but you get crushed by the pressure. Sales is miserable.
Right. I mean,
in a way, it's a really hard job.
Because
no matter what you sell, they want more, and some of the techniques are so kind of gross.
Right.
You're trying to like manipulate people, and they're teaching these, and I'm just like, I can't.
Right. They use psychology in a way to manipulate, and it did not seem like a good calling for you, even though you could be good at it. I don't think you felt good doing it.
Yeah, I was pretty good at it, but the anxiety level was just so high.
Right.
But anyways,
so
plus other factors, it's just like, my brain. I think my brain enjoys. You probably know better what the term is, but like nonlinear, and I like to work on several pieces at once. And you're taught that's wrong. You're taught distracted is wrong. You're taught that certain ways of thinking and being are wrong. And I'm totally engrossed with Terrence McKenna for years now. Recently got into him, and I have different people I listen to. This is later down the line. We'll talk about some of my influences. But we kind of match what mental health is to like a corporate slave. If you are a good worker bee, your mental health is good. But if you're not, something's wrong with you. No, like there's other ways to exist, and there's other ways to work hard. Anyways, I'm rambling.
Well, no, that's a good point. And and it's also when you talk about calling, and I do think it takes experimentation to find out what your calling is. For instance, I didn't know that I wanted to be a counselor, and then I found out that I really liked it, and I still like it a lot. Even though I'm transitioning to more of a director role, I'm finding it a challenge, but I'm finding I like helping other counselors
help them
become
be
their best and help more people and help them faster and deeper and with different techniques and different ways of being, and trying to create an environment where people can really not be stressed but feel taken care of and feel like their work is valued and they're not just a drone. And I try to and I've worked in places where it seems like their focus is productivity over quality, and I'm trying to do quality over productivity.
That's amazing.
And it's really hard because at the same time, occasionally, the part that I don't enjoy as much is just kind of the business aspect of it. And so it's interesting, getting help on that. I've hired a few people that are what I call like staff that aren't counselors, and they love the business side. They love organizing things and files and paperwork and keeping track of due dates. And so I felt now that I'm just starting to get to the point where I have the luxury of being able to pay a staff to help me. I'm not doing the counseling and the research and the teaching and the consulting and the business. I'm doing less of the business because I found out that's not my calling. It's interesting to me on some levels to go, oh, where are we at? What could our goals be or whatever? That's sort of interesting. But the logistics of it are not interesting to me at all. And so I found, and then when I was mentioning something to somebody the other day, one of the staff members, they said, hey, we need to work on this or that. And I said, okay, well, I'll get to that. They said, well, you know what? I like doing that. And I said, really?
Wow.
They said, I enjoy that. I said, well, then I am delegating this to you 100%. Like, so it's kind of a learning experience.
Not a lot of places have someone who's, I hate to say it, like stable and secure, where they're like, I'll delegate that to you. They're controlling and insecure, and their management style is like pretty painful.
Well, but that's true.
Can I mention your wife?
Sure.
You and Nicole, who I've known as well for a long time as well, you guys are always getting going to conferences and continue your education and learning the more, maybe, I don't know.
Whatever it is, we're trying to learn more.
Not esoteric, but the higher level stuff, and you're continuing your learning. So, I'm not a counselor, but, being a healer, I that's positioning you hopefully to be, be great at being more of a person in charge of a lot of counselors, or a lot of, what do you guys call them?
Counselors and therapists, psychotherapists.
Yeah.
But for instance,
what are you people?
The staff member we involved, I was talking about, that is not even a counselor, it's just helping us with the logistics of the organization. I was just talking about, calling. They seem to really like making sure everything's accounted for and ethically correct and numbers are good or whatever. They like doing that. And so it was interesting to me to give up control of that. And I like that. But it's also one of the things Nicole and I are trying to do is create an atmosphere where we're imagining ourselves as the worker So when I developed the positions for the counselors and the staff, we thought, how would we want to be treated? Because we went through years of working for organizations where we felt mistreated, we felt dehumanized, we felt like a product where they were trying to get more productivity out of, less quality, and that we had to fight for quality.
Total
and that we
quality
had to fight,
management.
Right, and we had to deal with personalities that were sort of totalitarian, and so we tried to come up with a pay structure and a situation where we'd feel like, wow, when I first start getting my counseling job, I want to be in a place like this.
Yeah.
And so that's what
Do you know
we did.
Sir Richard Branson?
We're totally off. Is he in recovery and
no, I don't
England?
know.
Oh,
well, he had a quote, something. I mean, you read quotes and some stick
Right.
and some don't. I think he said, train and treat your employees so good enough so that they become world class or whatever, and then hope that they'll stay or something about like,
sure,
it's the opposite. There's a fear based in a lot of decisions. Oh, if I give my employees if I put all these resources into my employees and how the job is, they'll leave and then
Sure.
I lose. But he said something that was really great. I don't have the quote up, but hope that they'll stay. And that's true. Like if there's equity in any relationship, you stay in it. So
well, right. And so we kind of got off on a sidetrack about you were working of course we did. You were working in an environment that didn't feel right to you, and you basically said, I remember this because it was, I believe, Hanukkah 2017 or 2018.
Sure.
We went out and is it okay that we were celebrating that? It's not.
No, man.
It was more your holiday than my holiday.
I know. It's not even mine. I love that we just pick it. And we for some reason,
we went
because
out
of holidays, we'll go get a beer.
That's true.
One beer. No.
Well, we were,
we're like the lost children of Hanukkah. No.
Yeah, well, and I worked, I enjoy all cultures. And so I try to not make differentiation as much because I feel like we're all citizens of the world and we're all humans. We all come from the same DNA. So when we were out, we're like, oh, it's Hanukkah. We're celebrating Hanukkah. And, you are Jewish. So I went with that. And
I have Jewish heritage.
I worked for Jewish Family and Children's Services for 7 years. And I appreciate the culture. And so we went out. And I remember you saying literally on Hanukkah, like, I'm cutting the cord. Like, I'm going to be doing art. I remember this. And you were kind of unsure about it.
Oh, yeah. I've done it several times.
Sure, but this time you were sure.
It's kind of like a kid scared to jump in the water.
Right. Well,
there's some good things happening for me, and full disclosure, I'm like 48, going to be 49 in September, but you always hear those stories, Grandma Moses, or people that just like don't give up, and I'm realizing that the payoff for being able to, it's a luxury to be able to come to the studio and do art. It's a luxury to get to show in Phoenix. It's a luxury even to sell art if people like it. But the main awesomeness is just I feel good because I feel more aligned. And I'm just working a restaurant job right now,
part-time or whatever.
Yeah, trying to see if I can pull it off part-time. And you just feel better. I'm nicer to other people because I'm being nicer to me. Like,
that's a good point.
It's something a lot of people already know.
It is. It's just hard to put into action, though.
Yeah, they're raised that way.
I think it's harder to put into action because there is a scarcity mentality and there's a cultural expectation of certain things that you see on social media or the news or TV shows, and our culture does glorify wealth and the accumulation of stuff and the accumulation of the perfect home and the perfect car and whatever it is. Mm-hmm. And it's sort of, even though people know, I think a lot of people know that's not the meaning, that's not going to satisfy you in the long run, it is constantly kind of piped into our airwaves and the television waves and the YouTube, all that. So I think it's one thing to know it, that, hey, you know what, I'll be happier if I cut down on stuff I don't like to do and do more of what I do like to do and take the trade-offs.
It's really strange.
Because there's trade-offs and risks, because then you finally do it and look, you're like happier than you've been. Then I remember the one time you did it for a couple of years and you were just making money off music, playing gigs.
Trying to make
I thought
money.
you were pretty happy then.
I was trying to make money off music.
When you went back to corporate America, I was like, whoa, you did not seem as happy as you were.
It's tough.
Right. And so then, now this time, sustaining a living with a part-time job and then doing art is, I feel like you're kind of doing things that people wish they could do. So I think that's inspirational.
Yeah. And I'm just trying to focus on it's stuff a couple years ago I'd be more knee-jerky about, but it's gratitude, it's acceptance. I have to accept, where I am in art, but the cool thing is it doesn't matter because I'm kind of finding some of that, like the first band and you're just like, you have 15 shows and you're not getting paid and you're hauling all your gear everywhere in Tempe. I'm making a flyer for every show. I'm so fun. I'm working my other job. I have all this energy. I'm a young buck. And I'm not saying I have all that energy back, but it's coming back. It's like, it's part of it. Like, I think we clog our own, or I've clogged my own chakras, my own energy, my own alignment with joy. And it's so weird. It's so chicken fried and Swiss cheesed. And, luckily I can say yes to stuff. I can be out there and open, the local galleries, Instagram, everything part of my community, I'm just grateful for instead of like freaking out about. So
yeah, I mean, just being a part of whatever fits is. I've seen your stuff on Instagram.
Yeah,
we'll put the links in the show notes for your Instagrams. You have multiple Instagrams.
Of course,
one's more for art, one's more for personal.
I got like 3 Instagrams. It's kind of scary. Yeah. Well, for the studio, I help run that. In fact,
the studio.
I have an old personal one, which just is more fun because I can get weirder. I kind of keep my art one a little more, just my art.
Right.
Obviously,
Makes
and I try
sense.
to sell stuff off that in the stories. I love Instagram. I like Facebook still, but I am semi-addicted to it. I can admit it. But I think it's like anything. There's good and bad. I've met a lot of people and gotten to do collaborations. People can directly contact me and encourage me. I can encourage other artists I like, and it just feels good.
Yeah.
And
I found
but
that
the downside is I get a little addicted. Those little likes. Oh, I didn't get a lot of likes on this piece.
Right.
But I think fortunately I'm moving into a spot where I'm like, oh man, look at all this good over here. The art therapy part. I get to do my calling. I get to share. So
well, just blame it on the algorithm. That's what I say when you don't get enough likes. But I think well, I think there's proof now. We won't go into the numbers, but you've sold enough art in some of the months here recently to be able to live off of. I mean, obviously, you need to be selling that every month, but I mean, you're getting to that point.
Yeah, that's a strange conversation.
Sure.
Because I think right now, more than ever, I'm like, I can say I'm an artist.
Sure.
But I accept there's so many artists and so many amazing creatives. They just know they got to have their day job until they don't.
And and that's okay.
Or sometimes they do have a day job.
And there's nothing wrong with having a day job either, because sometimes being an artist does withdraw you to the studio away from people.
Right. So
with
there's a
people,
balance.
sure.
And in the last 3 days, for some reason, I've seen so many. I just saw Soul Coughing at Mike Doty at Crescent Ballroom, and he on stage he said, Patreon pays my mortgage, like, luckily he gets to just do music and that pays his way, I think. But there's so many artists out there I know that they have feast and famine, and it's smart to have a side job or side skills.
Sure.
And that's just something I have to learn, that there's no shame in that game at all. In fact, there's more pride in that game because you're being resourceful.
Sure.
And you're just, I feel like I'm just kidding myself if I at this point where I'm just like,
art only or no.
Or kind of like, the universe, blah, blah, blah. I've got to take care of business because of mental health issues and that stuff. You got to do, you have to have your routine. And it does help to have, I got to go to the job and stuff.
Well, an exposure to different people and cultures through the job can influence your art.
Well, I guess, yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, not that this is like a hero, but Charles Bukowski worked for the post office for 12 to 14 years before he wrote his first book, and he was just a struggling poet and that no one cared about before that. And I've talked to people that are comedians. Recently, I talked to a comedian in Chicago, and he intentionally works at a restaurant 3 nights a week.
Yeah, that's a tough one.
Because
those guys are
he wants to have conversations every day. He wants to meet people. He imagines like what their career is in their head or whatever, and then he comes and talks to them and finds out what their real career is. So see if he can like use that in his shows.
Brain exercise.
And he's just, he's a young guy. I think he was in his 20s. Oh, I just remember his Instagram is called Mayor of None, but I don't know how to spell that, or it's got some underscores.
Do you want me to
probably.
look it up?
It's okay. We can. Right. He was a funny kid.
Shout out to Mayor of None.
Shout out. Obscure shout out. Anyway, he was my waiter, and he was hilarious, and he told me about his shows, and he told me about his open mic nights, and the guy's just going out there, and he's kind of reminds me of you in a way. Like he's working his day job 3 days a week, but it's paying his bills, but he's living his dream, and that takes guts.
Yeah,
it's a long time of showing up. It doesn't matter, and this is something I'll say to the artists out there. Sometimes it doesn't matter how great of an artist or musician you are. Sometimes it's about just showing up over and over and over and over and going for it.
Well, sure, yeah. It does matter.
Well, it does matter, sure. It also matters.
No,
you should have some skills. Don't just don't just drop out of college and become an artist if you don't have any skills.
I think a lot of this stuff is kind of like no brainer. A lot of people know this, but for some reason in my journey, there's been like this division, a strong switch between, corporate work, or I get a paycheck, I'm working 50, how many ever hours a week. Oh, I do art on the side,
on the side.
I like a better blend. My life's been kind of interesting, and I think my recent diagnosis of bipolar, and I apologize for everybody, I don't remember whether it was one or two. I realized that I can, I kind of maybe need some space. The distracted mind isn't necessarily crazy, but it kind of likes to do. It gets bored. I can do this. I could work at a restaurant for 4 days a week, but I have 3 days to work on art and get this shit done. And so I'm just really enjoying my time right now. I just saw David Leap Hart last night, which is from Adult Swim. Shout out to him, and Trunk Space in Phoenix, and Treasure Mammal opened. It was amazing.
Oh, I love Treasure Mammal.
And
shout out to Treasure Mammal.
Sorry, Phoenix, or the rest.
Sorry, everybody else we haven't named. Right.
So here's an example of a guy that's been working in Hollywood for years, and he ends up with Tim and Eric, and he's outsider art. He's it's kind of bizarre, but I love it. And I forgot my point. My point was the guy's just on tour, and he's doing what he loves.
And he's playing a basement show in Phoenix at not a large venue, which is fine.
Which is probably perfect for him. But
sure.
It's kind of like that people talk about energy. I'm going out and seeing more shows. I'm not isolating, and I'm really enjoying it.
Yeah, and
I think that's part of this community imbalance and with the mental health stuff.
Yeah, I mean, and I think one of the things I've been trying to help people with lately is there's many ways of looking at mental health and emotional wellness, or whatever you want to call it, or being able to regulate, which is what I've been working on lately, emotional regulation. When something bad happens, how do I look at the long view versus the short view? In the short view, I'm freaking out and upset and saying things I regret. And in the long view, if I look at the long view, I'm breathing slowly and going, okay, this is just part of my experience, this is part of life. And if nobody's dying, if nobody's died, why am I freaking out and making this into an emotional turmoil? What's that other thing
you start doing? I mean, my brain's just blanking, but what are those activities you do that are negative and destructive?
Oh.
Not acting out, but you start to compensate?
Oh, you mean like
start go and drink way too much.
Base habits,
coping.
They're coping skills, but they're negative coping skills.
No, you start doing those things where you're like, oh, I'm gonna isolate. Oh, I'm gonna go
watch Netflix for 2 days.
Yeah,
I'm gonna go. Or there's so many things that are built into our society that are easily accessible for instant gratification, and most of which makes your life shorter and more miserable.
Right. I've noticed recently,
Tinder, alcohol.
Yeah.
I'm not against alcohol or drugs at all.
I'm not against any of them.
But
it's just
it's how you use it, and if you're using
being an adult
it to
about
cope,
what it does to you, and if you have if you have a mental illness, it's like a sports injury. If I know I got a bad knee, I better go work on it and wear a brace and take it easy and warm up.
Well, right, and I was going to get into the two sides of things too, but I think what you're saying is I think we're all on a spectrum, and I think at different times in our life we're more prone to depression or more prone to anxiety. And if you have something like post-traumatic stress disorder, or if you have a biological depression or biological anxiety, then you're even more prone to that side. But we all kind of shuffle on one of those, along a ruler, maybe you could say, a spectrum.
Yeah.
And so I think that there's times in your life where you have to be sensitive to that, and if you're not, life will throw you a wake-up call. So I know that I've inherited anxiety. I know that. And so I'm always a little bit more on that spectrum, to the point where I won't even notice it sometimes. And somebody will say, hey, you seem anxious. I said, really? I feel normal.
Everybody take a deep breath.
Right. So
I'm taking a deep breath now.
Let's take a deep breath right now. So what I guess what I'm saying is it's about kind of self-monitoring, but also this. I think as people want to know an answer. And because an answer helps us feel secure and sort of like when we're a kid, we have a right or wrong answer because our thinking level is at the concrete level. And what I've been trying to work with on some of my clients lately is that there's two ways to look at a lot of things. And one of the ways is, okay, I'm stressed. Let's use a structural approach to work on my stress. Here's my structure. My structure is I'm going to buy the Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction Workbook and the CD.
The what?
It's called Mindfulness-Based Stress Reduction, MBSR. Sorry,
Okay.
I talked really fast.
It's okay.
And I'm going to start going through the workbook. Maybe once a week I'll read a chapter.
Is that something just a regular?
That's something I use.
Oh,
Sure.
for you, or is this something that patients
clients.
use, or like people?
Me, clients, anyone.
Or just the general population?
Anyone can
find
use it.
Yeah.
It was invented
You
by
thought- you
John
fa-
Kabat-Zinn in the 80s at
And you find it to be pretty good?
John Hopkins.
Mental health picture pages
Well,
workbook.
it's a good program. It's kind of like breath work, and it works
Uh-huh.
and it works on lowering anxiety and depression. And the studies have proven it, and it's proved to help reduce stress. Depending on how long you utilize it and how often, it's sort of like it's a practice. I've probably need to do a whole podcast on it. I haven't yet. So, instance, that's a structure.
Yeah.
My structure is now I'm going to do a mindfulness-based stress reduction exercise once a day for 10 to 15 minutes, which isn't that long, but could improve the rest of my day and my stress and even my symptoms. Because this empirically proven, the more you do it, the better your symptom picture looks. And there's a structure. But at the same time, life isn't about just structuring and having one answer. So that's a structure you implement for a time to maybe help become part of your lifestyle. And maybe it helps you for a time, but then you have to pivot to something else later on because it doesn't always keep working the same way. It evolves. And so the other thing is that we've got to be like a jazz player. The jazz player can do the routine. They can get through the song, but they always play it differently. And so we're going through our day. Time is going to continue. You wake up, and then at night you're going to go to sleep, hopefully, unless you've had too much caffeine or whatever. And so we also have to be like a jazz player, which is, okay,
be able to improv.
Sure, that structure is helping us, but don't think that there's one answer that's going to apply to your problem.
Yeah.
And so part of that is learning by life experience, which we talked a lot about in this podcast so far, but also from books, from other sources, from podcasts, from other people, from our community, learning and not having the pride that we know it all, or not having the need to feel like we know it all, because that just increases more anxiety. I don't know what to do. Okay, well, that's okay not to know what to do. Sometimes you just have to sit there and wait for the answer of what to do, or make the best answer you can at the time.
Sure.
Which isn't always maybe in hindsight the best, but it might be better than freezing. So I'm talking about a couple ways to approach your mental health, which is, yes, have some structure, have some education that you bring in, not like a whole regimen, depending on your situation, your average person. But also be okay with ambiguity, tolerate mystery.
I think we're
being okay to not know everything. Go ahead.
I think we're kind of soking in some ideologies.
Uh-oh.
Here we go.
Did you just say
We're
ideologies?
just about to turn a corner at
Segue.
at ideology and archetype.
And archetypal and a truck just went by.
Well, no,
a
like-
welding truck. Is that a segue?
I don't think so. No.
Was that a?
We have some pretty
Synchronicity?
rigid pass-fail things.
Okay.
Heaven,
Let's go
hell, whatever. What
You're talking about.
the Hebrew gods like hell, fire and brimstone.
You're talking about binary thinking, black and white thinking.
Yeah, and recently I've been able to enjoy think of 3 or 4 ways to talk about a subject and also accept both sides.
So uniting the opposites, sort of.
Well,
being able to
it's
appreciate
just a
the
place
opposites.
to not be as stressed out. The Hindu cosmology. My friend just went to Thailand. He said, "Wow, everyone's a lot more relaxed." The salad bar thing and kind of what you're saying made me think. Your improvisation. You have all these gods. Not that I'm, super like promoting Hinduism or their cosmology or a polytheistic,
viewpoint or whatever.
God thing. But you just go. Even the Greeks, you just go with the God that's in the moment for the emotion. Aries, warrior, angry, and you allow yourself. You're just taken up in that. There's less self-judgment in our society. In the main monotheistic religions have a lot of self-judgment, and we can park that
and
thought.
projection. But
we can park that thought and get into that later. But that's stuff I really love, and I hope it kind of comes out in my abstract work as far as me navigating some ideas and energy. But that stuff I love too. So, I love art and music. And part of me kind of, when you think back, you're like, oh, I wish I was a history major or more philosophy, just so you learn about all these cultures. I really think there's a lot of people who have an on-off kind of situation with how their life's supposed to go or how their morality is. Like, people are pretty good people usually. And we have, I think I've soaked in like this on-off judgmental Judeo-Christian world for a long time, and that's a journey I'm interested in talking about too. And I don't know if mental health in other countries or other places is actually better because of capitalism, Judeo-Christian. Like, you start to have all these factors kind of pushing down on your soul and your brain and your mind and your health. And I think, for at least the last 10 years or part of my life, I've been moving towards more being just exploratory and salad bar. Ooh, let's try that. The binary thinking, it's like in some sense, for like a Zen koan, you want it like an unsolvable riddle, so your mind just kind of goes to nowhere. But it can be a trap. It can just be this trap, right?
Well, that's a huge subject.
Yeah,
so
answer that, Paul. Or was that a sentence?
I'm not a theological or ideological expert, so I will say that I would say that in a sort of parlay middle ground sort of way, just for people that are interested in what we're talking about, I would read Joseph Campbell.
Yeah, I love
and
Joseph
I would
Campbell.
read Carl Jung, and I would read Bill Plotkin, and I would read James Hillman.
Hillman is somebody you just hit me to recently that he blew me away. I like guys where you don't know what most people go, oh, that's that guy's point of view.
He believes that.
He's pushing that on me, and I really enjoyed Hillman because I'm like, oh.
Hillman's always pivoting.
Yeah.
So,
and
so I guess to go on that, we could go further, but I'll just say in terms of the ideologies and what is that causing more or less mental health or whatever, it's hard for me to say because anything I say can be used against me in the future.
Right. And
but let me just say this, though.
I don't want to necessarily, I kind of came off there, and I probably am a little judgmental of Judeo-Christianity.
Well, you're soaked in it because that's what part of our country's largest religion, I believe. So, but we'll say this. There are ways of implementing spirituality and religion that are honoring of the entire principles that they're based on, that are honoring of other people, that are honoring of the earth, that are honoring of animals, that are honoring of the gods, or the God that they worship. And there are ways in which you can bring a religion or a spiritual belief within any of the major religions that are completely toxic, focused on power, focused on
guilt,
control,
shame.
Control through guilt and shame, controlled on cultural winning, or whatever you want to call that, or political winning, and are completely divorced from the original teachings of whoever was the originator of that religion, and can be used as a weapon to hurt other people, which is ironically ridiculous, usually because most religions, the major religions, don't advocate that. But when you have a book that's been translated into English by many different people with many different ideologies, many different historical motivations, there can be a lot of misinterpretation in the English. And even if you go back to the ancient, literal translations.
Western thought and Eastern thought.
Sure.
You have a Western thought paradigm trying to translate an Eastern.
An Eastern concept. So there's a lot. Basically, there's a lot of things, unless you're a scholar on this, that can be, even as a scholar, that can be not totally interpreted. And I've been reading, I can't remember what this rabbi's name is, but there's a rabbi who's very famous for kind of reading the Bible and in a way where he'll say, well, yeah, that's interesting, and that's one point of view, and then it's accepted in the Jewish Judaism to kind of debate multiple interpretations.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you also have the Hasidic Jews who believe that this is the interpretation. This is the one interpretation. So in Christianity, you have the fundamentalist Christians who say the English King James Version is the way, and we interpret these things in this way, and that's the only way, and anyone who says that is a threat. And then you have, on the far end, the Episcopalians, Universalists, and the mystical kind of Christians who are more, or even the mainstream, who are more open to, there's different ways to interpret certain things based on historical context and hermeneutics. So I'm not an expert in that, but I will say, I think with anything, just like social media or even mental health literature or really anything, it can be used for good or evil. And I think there's a binary there where it can get messy and gray, but it's the way that you're utilizing it, and it's the way that you're implementing it, and what are the hidden motivations that you may or may not know about. So that's where I would go with that.
It's always safe, I feel, to find a luminary. I don't know if luminary is the right word. Like I found Marshall McLuhan. I found Terrence McKenna, even Alan Watts. You got these people, late 60s, late 70s.
Let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, they're able to, they're students of the sport and the sport of spirituality, and they'll tell you a bunch of things, and they feel more open to challenge, and they know what they know. And what they do for me is they encourage me to go read. Or recently I'm learning more about the Hermetic, laws. The Hermetic laws.
I don't even know about that.
Hermes Trismegistus, I say his name wrong, and Thoth, Thoth.
Okay.
And different, and I also have a background of kind of looking at these things as archetypes and a moving, human psyche.
Like a symbol that's been around for a long time.
Like I like Jung, and I like these people that kind of, Joseph Campbell, that they go, look, these are all similar myths, and this is the collective consciousness. And, I think it's safe for people who maybe are in one thing that's binary to find a luminary or a teacher of sorts that's not creating an unsafe, it's going to manipulate you. I just go to YouTube and I listen to the guy talk, and then, he talks about the Hermetic laws, and then I go research that. And then I see, there's a couple different interpretations about what's going on with what that guy talked about. Even his isn't. And then you just realize, I've got to become a researcher. I can't trust any. You can trust some things and you can enjoy certain points of view, but I also feel like, great, I've learned this skill where I can kind of sit back and go, that's interesting. That's based on that. And I'm kind of pulling back more into generalities, but...
Sure. Well, we can go back into generalities, but I think you're talking about a couple things, which is being open to experiences and understanding the context of your own culture and your own belief system, of where you were born, the era you were born in, what you were taught, what spirituality you were introduced to, and being allowed to deconstruct that, but not to the level where it loses its value, but to the level where you can connect to other people and being open to that and learning new or other interpretations of it is what I'm hearing. And I'm also hearing, I can't remember, but I'm hearing a lot of things in there.
Well, recently at this job, I work at a restaurant. A great friend for years, Lori Hassler, has this awesome restaurant, the Farish House. Shout out to Phoenix, Farish House. And she did a wine class, and I'm sitting there, and she's talking about different wines, the soil, where they grow, being aware of what you grew up in. And then all of a sudden, I got this strange, my brain works in analogy. I'm like, we're just all grapes. What region did I grow up? What soil did I have? That's going to end up the flavor of my energy and in my existence. I'm a wine. I'm a wine. But then also, what I'm learning and excited about now is like matrix stuff. I want to I'm just wetware and hardware. That's the wine I was, and then metamorphosis. Could I become any wine I want? Can I adjust my energy and my persona and my personality? We all have personalities. A wine has a personality. I have Doug is so bright and friendly at first, but man, he was just really sarcastic and dark and mean. And that's the wine I am. And I'm like, it was crazy. I got to do this wine tasting class. And I'm a dingbat sometimes, but deeper, I'm like, wow, we're just all fucking grapes. And there's a region I grew up in, and I was soaked. And how you treat the wine is how you treat your little children and how you're raised. We're all just grapes, Paul, and we're just what vintage. And it's such a great analogy. even the culture I grew up, like the wine, the region.
Yeah.
It was really fun. And hearing you talk, I was like, wow, I want to do a wine analogy.
Well, and that's a complete, I mean, I think until you uncork the bottle, and if you're willing to uncork the bottle and become aerated and bring in molecules from other regions and other spaces.
To be tasted and
the
enjoyed.
Influence, I'm not even going there, but
to
the
be
influence.
Spilled.
Sure,
Spill the wine.
Spilled out. Okay, we got to go reel that back in. But to be able to be infiltrated by air bubbles from what's happening right now. So one of the things I was talking about with one of my mentors recently was about how locked in we are to our perspectives. Even somebody who's learned or whatever, they're a student of the world or whatever they're reading, you're still locked into a certain perspective, and it takes a lot of work to unlock.
But also I'm also want to find this place where I'm like, that's that wine. Enjoy that wine for what it is.
So yes.
So I'm not judging people.
No, not judging.
There's a big push, I feel, in this be here now, whatever it was 10 years ago, New Age movement, spirituality movement, where there's also these people out there who are like, oh, you've got to be vegan, you've got to do this.
Oh, right.
Like the wine analogy too is like, I just enjoy that wine for what it is. I don't want that wine tonight. So you avoid it or you try a different wine. But I think a really cool place for me to get to in my spirituality and understanding even myself is understanding my dark side and not getting my shadow, the Jungian thing. That's a long journey for me. Because in the shadow and other people, like, wow, that guy's really, or gal's really pissing me off. But just be like, being able to go, wow, they must be having a tough day, or empathy, self-empathy and empathy towards other. I hope my journey with my dark side, referencing to Jung's description of your shadow, that's going to be a good thing. Maybe even in my art, but my brain wants to. I think of that idea when you're talking about all the positive pushes and changing, and even my own desire to change and become, transcend. Maybe transcending is also just accepting my shadow and going, man, and enjoying the great things I am, and just being a little easier on myself on some of my shortcomings.
Well, absolutely, and
spirituality, energy, everything.
Well, let me touch on that.
Reel
real quick.
That one in.
Well,
Paul.
we're in a culture that's all about ascension. So if you think about the American
just like
way,
capitalism to me.
Capitalism, the American
how
way.
How much more can you extend? They can't have unlimited growth.
Bigger, better. Explore,
more
move west.
Ascenditor.
And then with Christianity and Catholicism, it's about ascending to the sky. And so there's a part of that's necessary. We need to try harder and do things in our life and make goals. But there's also the opposite side.
Yeah.
The opposite side that is more in an Eastern consciousness.
A balance.
Which is going within and accepting what is there. And not just your ideal future or your ideal self or your imago, but confronting the dark side. So most people, like you said, somebody's pissing you off. Well, we don't know what happened that day. We don't know what happened to them. We don't know where they're at. We don't know why they're doing that until we really get to know them. And that's the push for authenticity that's, I think, been happening in the U.S. over the last 10 years. Has been a big buzzword is authenticity. And one of my mentors said to me the other day, he's 74. He said, you know what it is? He said, in the old days, we had a grand narrative. This is the path that you get a career, you get a house, you get a job, you have kids, you join a religion, you join a political party, and that's what you do, and you lock in. And then you enjoy as much of the fruits of that as possible, and you try to grow your bank account or grow your dividends. And he said, what's happening now is that young people have realized they're demanding the truth. What is the truth behind all that? What is actually going on when we do those things? And what are the dark sides to locking in to a viewpoint and not being open and thinking you're right about everything? And so the dark side, known as the shadow, but also authenticity, is growing instead of ascending, it's descending. I have to take time to descend, and I feel that I think there's times in your life where you ascend and descend. And I think for me, graduate school was part of me was ascending. I was learning new information. I go to this conference tomorrow. Actually, talking about conferences, I'm going to a conference tomorrow for counseling, American Counseling Association. That might be some ascending. But when I've really changed, a lot of that's been descending. When I hurt somebody's feelings and I found out about it, or I made a bad decision and I reaped the consequences.
The value in your shadow.
Yeah.
That's my new. I'm going to run for president. I'm going to be our economy needs to be based on
the shadow side of everything,
the shadow economy.
Yeah, well, yeah, and there's the shadow,
the GDP of learning from your shortcomings, and maybe that's what Christ was talking about too.
Sure. Well, I mean,
I said it.
I don't know what verse you're referring to.
Oh,
but
you know which one?
No, I'm a little rusty.
I'm just
kidding.
But
yeah, I mean, the truth will set you free. And the truth is hard. The truth is that's a Christ quote. And the truth is hard to swallow. But for instance, sometimes
when you forgive yourself and you're forgiven, I think that's one of the main tenets of Christianity. It's supposed to be.
Sure.
You're in the mud. You're in the ugliness of your humanity and what maybe you did. And if you can forgive yourself or forgive somebody else, when you have empathy, your energy changes because that binary thing's gone. It's just like maybe it's almost mono or like inclusive. It's like I am that person, so I can have empathy. I mean, you've got to defend yourself, but
sure.
But like it's interesting, that's one of my goals soon here, as far as my spirituality. When I was younger, I had a mercuriality or
mercurial experience or a miracle. Miraculous.
No, I was able to just be around people that annoyed me because it didn't penetrate me.
Oh, I see.
And I could actually do kind of like interesting things where I could just be in and out of their energy. They wouldn't come out. I could just be totally mercurial.
Okay.
To a degree, and I think that's a great tool in your interpersonal toolkit. But we're really wandering. But
well, that's okay. I actually think this is good for philosophy section of it.
Yeah, and you inviting me on your podcast, you knew was kind of dangerous.
I knew.
We have conversations. We'll have conversations like this for hours.
This is actually normal. This doesn't feel rehearsed at all because this is probably the last 7 conversations we've had.
We totally enjoy these searchers and these luminaries, and we challenge each other. But I'm grateful for your friendship, Paul, because even when I was a lot harsher on Christianity and I think you were more immersed in it, sure. I probably said some shitty things.
Well, no.
But I'm coming around. I like the mercurial ability to be in all of them. But yeah.
Sure. And I would say I appreciate your friendship too because, yeah, I've been just like you. I've been in my own phases. I'm not totally talking about that on my podcast, but I've been in and out of multiple phases, and I have very interesting viewpoints on spirituality. But it's not my wheelhouse anymore in terms of what I'm an expert on. And so for me, I will talk about it privately more with people I know, but I don't go advertising that because of multiple reasons that are personal and the political climate and the labeling binary culture that we're in.
Yeah,
and so
and just to be sure here, when I say binary, sure. I mean logically, right?
Logically, yes.
I think binary is almost also a term for gender something.
And non-binary is...
Yeah, I don't want to talk about any of that because I don't... Yeah, I know.
What I mean by binary is that you're locked in to it's either left or right.
Right, like in a discussion,
up or down, you're like, and there's no movement,
push or pull or conflict or.
I mean, there's always opposites pulling on us from different topics, and also the atmosphere and gravity and different things like that pulling upon us. So there's always room for that. But I think, and you'll see this in life, is there's always something. There's something in the middle. We're trying to be able to accept the opposites of life and death, and being in the middle, and pain and joy, and excitement and boredom. We're trying to live. If we can, we want to be able to experience both sides, but we also want to be able to find a way to exist where, like you said, like trying to have empathy for other people and not taking things personally. And if somebody's pissing you off, what about them is pissing you off, and have you ever done something like that? Have I ever cut somebody off in traffic? Sure, I have.
There's more like that. Those techniques are hard for me at first because I'm like, but like the mercurial thing or doing a kind of a brain exercise where you're like, wow, I can think of 3 other answers.
Well,
not being like that guy's bad, I'm good. I see or gal or situation. I know how the situation. That's attachment too. So
sure,
we're touching on a lot of stuff, but it's all stuff I love, and by no means am I an expert on. But I'm definitely a student of a lot of these things, And I don't quite know if it's coming out in my art, but it's really fun to talk about too.
Well, the current art,
and I think it relates to what you do as a healer. If I can use that
Sure,
term.
you can use that term because I do it for people. I don't do it for the insurance companies.
Right, and I think it relates to me as a self-healer through art. Like I'm getting to do my own art therapy, which is very fortunate. It's very fortunate.
Well, yeah, and so
unfortunately, it's fortunate. Like, why can't this just be more common? And it is in some pockets of certain subcultures. You're just immersed in art, but it's shrunk, I think, in capitalism and in education.
Well, that's a whole nother topic about the value of music and art programs. It starts with school. It starts with education and where are we putting our resources.
But kind of subconsciously, I think society has come back because a lot of commerce has happened from art recently. I mean, I was reading that the arts and culture section is contributing a lot to economy and capitalism. And maybe that's a lesson for me to go, wow, capitalism isn't this evil thing. I have to be non-binary with it and go, look, how could it work?
It's the system that we're in, and hard to transcend it since we live here. I can't remember the last thing I was going to say before we move into. I want to talk about some of the influences on your art and some of your exploration, some of these quotes.
Yeah.
I was trying to remember.
It's been a journey. It is a journey.
Exactly. So one of the things I think that I've learned recently, and I've known this before, but I think learning it and knowing it are two different things, and really being able to embody it is if you do your own personal work where you're open to your own criticism and the criticism of others, but also open to your own love and the love of others. If you're doing some type of practice, I don't care what it is, if it's in your spiritual realm, if it's in your mental health realm, if it's in a physical activity realm, if you're doing something that opens you up to the moment, and not just being like, oh, the moment's Zen, but just the moment of my life. Today's Tuesday, Wednesday, whatever it is. I'm going to be in that day, and I'm going to try my best, or whatever mantra I have.
I like the word practice. It's
a practice, and so
martial arts, yoga, music, sword,
prayer, anything,
art,
whatever,
prayer,
meditation, tai chi, anything, music, something that is not just a distraction. Bingo, sure. Something that's not just a distraction, something that's not just instant gratification, and something that isn't just filling space. I think that's when you're prepared. I mean, I'm talking 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. That's when you're prepared, how we were talking about, to respond with empathy and to try to see yourself in others and to accept your shadow. I think you have to do a practice to be able to get there.
All right.
Because otherwise, we're spending our time projecting our feelings onto other people, blaming other entities. You know, like you said, maybe I should be in the middle and not maybe in a logical debate with somebody on economics, maybe not in that way, but maybe I should be trying to accept where I'm at, yet trying to change it, about capitalism versus one or the other, something like that.
Yeah.
And I think that gets into critical thinking, which to be a critical thinker, I think you have to lower your stress, which is why the practice
totally.
of doing something opening, because when you're stressed, and that's something we can measure with heart monitors and brain and neuron, brain monitors and everything. We can measure stress on the body and hypertension. That actually
lowers
moves
your IQ 15 points.
I don't know about that. I haven't read that one.
Well, Andrew Yang, my favorite front runner in the Democratic presidential race, I knew this intuitively, but he said it. When you're stressed out, your IQ goes down 15 points, like your actual IQ.
I wouldn't doubt it.
And he's like, he's a proponent of universal basic income.
Sure.
If he gives people $1,000 a month, they can work their job and still make ends meet. Their stress level goes down. Their creative brain and problem-solving thing goes up. They have a better life. Anyway, sorry.
Sure.
I felt like I had to pop that in there because I was like, oh my God, is he going to say that IQ thing and stress?
I didn't know about the IQ thing, but I do know this. All the studies show that your creativity plummets, your ability to solve problems, and your empathy decreases, and your fight or flight response down to the lizard brain or the amygdala goes up. And so that's just so simple. We know that from science, and we know that from teachings for thousands of years that before science proved it.
And a practice can just do that.
Why aren't we doing a practice? And that's the most simple thing we can do.
That's
and I'm
amazing.
calling myself out too. Why am I not doing the practice? Why do I make excuses? Oh, I should do something more. Productivity. Oh, quality control. I should work on my quality. Oh, I should be creative. Well, wait a minute. First of all, what about opening myself up to this moment, to this day, to this body, to who's around me, to what environment I'm in, to look around instead of just jumping into work, jumping into my car, jumping into the bus,
a little
the train.
space between thoughts and reactions.
It increases your space.
Right.
And so that,
for
I
me,
think,
just a little space helps. And if I take anything away from this discussion, I really like the word practice and realizing that all those things are a practice, because I was an athlete too when I used to swim for hours every day. It gives you space. It gives you calm. Yoga, martial arts, working on art, they're all meditations. And everybody, I feel, is an artist no matter what they think their talent level is. So that's really awesome, the practice. For me, kind of in a meta inside the podcast, like also listening to it, I'm like, remember practice. Maybe get a tattoo.
There you go. If you want to make it permanent.
Yeah,
or
because that's a
semi-permanent.
great thing, because that's one thing, no matter what's going on in your life, hopefully you can have like that 10-minute, 20-minute, increase it, practice.
Well, and I think the practice can always change. But for instance, right now, like looking at your art in the studio here, no pieces really look the same to me. And so that your art is a practice. And I think living is a practice.
Yeah.
And what are we rehearsing for? It's all a practice. You know, we think some day is going to show up where all of a sudden it's all going to gel. And I think there'll be a day where you'll be challenged and you'll bring your skills, but that day is going to be the same day as any other day. And
yeah, there's going to be, it's a spectrum. There's going to be days of better days and days of worse.
So
in the comment about my art, that's another thing. I was really binary and locked into a style. When we first met, I had this contour line drawing style. More people would akin it to like Picasso or cartoons, and I'm like, I've got to be original. I've got to have this style. And I had a really binary response to styles and influences. And for the most part, you know, I thought I was pulling it off. You know, it's really funny today on Facebook, talking about social media. A book I did with this great musician, Mel Brown, came up in my feed. And there it is, that little style. And I got to do illustrations for his book. So fun. And it's still there in some of my things, but I like to evolve. I like the freedom of like, where's this going to go? I just painted that mural a year ago over at Trans Am, and that's these things called meditation heads. They're digital. It's crisp. It's a certain style. But then I meet this friend, Michael Viglietta, and he's an amazing, consistently brilliant abstract painter. I'm like, God, and allowing yourself to just play and go towards an influence you want. And right now I'm just hot on exploring abstractism.
whatever it is. It is abstract.
Abstract art. It's got elements of some of my stuff, and I have like these crazy geometric stuff, but that's how my brain is, and I think I'm processing stuff. So to talk about my journey and art and influences, it's definitely changing, and you're right. I hope it's evolving, and maybe in each little phase there's some good pieces and there's some not so good pieces. I'll make a piece where I'm like, man, that sucks, and people love it.
Yeah,
I recently did a piece where it was the underpainting, and I posted it as a work in progress. And everyone was like, how much? And I'm like, it's not done. And my one friend's like, sell it. And I'm like, well, that's not my art. And I'm like, maybe I'm grappling with this binary thing of what is my art.
Well, that's funny. I was thinking, I used to make that joke about
a song
where, like you write a song and you write it all in one day, and then it's done, and you think wow, how derivative or cheesy or basic is this song, and that's everyone's favorite song, and that's actually been my experience. Versus another song I labored over, and I thought, oh, this is going to be such a great song, and here I am working it over and over and over and over, and people are like, oh, that song's okay. But I really like this one. And I'm like, that's the one I wrote in 10 minutes. What the heck?
Right.
Because it came out of somewhere in the collective.
I've recently butted up against what I'm going to call that as my shadow, like my ego and my attachment to what I'm doing. And I actually get upset, and it can ruin my day. But why would I put energy into that? And I do that a lot. So there's a lot of gold in my shadow. They're like, whoa, and maybe I'm on the right track, because recently I feel like I found a really cool synthesis of what I'm doing. And I'm like, I get to go, I don't know which brainwave it is, but I tend to think my work's better when I'm not thinking. So I'm practicing being in the no place, or the nowhere, or the neutral zone.
Right, trying not to overthink your art.
It's more intuitive, and it's so much more fun, it's so much more gratifying, and I feel and I think that the work's better, I'm really happy with the outcome. And that's back to my influences. I was living in LA, and I was working at this magazine, and I was just bored because there's nothing to do. You had to, hurry up and make these ads. Oh, wait. Oh, another guy got, like, what am I doing here? And early on in work, you're like, I've got to be working all the time. I didn't realize that that's kind of how life is.
Sure.
Just calm down. So I had the mouse, and I started drawing with the mouse in this circular pattern contour line, and I'm like, whoa, I can make these cool faces. And that was my style for a while, and I really, I was like, whoa. And I drew this thing, this face. It's kind of Picasso-ish. It's kind of, I guess your modern art, the classic modern art, postmodern. And I made a big giant print of it, and it was digital art. It's when digital art, nobody knew what it was. So I kind of got away with it. I made a digital print, and I've got it framed real nice in LA. And I have I've always had friends in Arizona. I was living in LA at the time, who have galleries. And my friends, the Garants, had this gallery in Scottsdale. And I had these giant, just cartoonish big contour lines, meaning one line. It doesn't stop. But it's this face, this really emotion and energy was captured in it. And it sold for like $500. And it took me literally under 2 minutes to draw it and click, put the color in it. And my whole life I've struggled. My dad's always like, you didn't work hard enough. That's not good enough. You can always get better. It was always a dilemma. And I'm getting it more and more now. Work hard, but that's not, but like, take a breath and calm down. There's a lot of anxiety impugned and pounded into me about how hard you have to work. Mm-hmm. It just didn't register in my mind that something could come so easy and flow and be good work and be hard work. And it sold for like $500 in Scottsdale. And I'm like, my brain couldn't grapple with the fact that it took me under 2 minutes to do it in a program called Photoshop. Like, it just blew me away. And I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't match what I've been taught at all. So practice and flow state are things I love. And I like when I get there with my art. And I think the art I enjoy and some of my influences, maybe those artists in their practice are hopefully seemingly look like they're in their flow state, because where's that inspiration and shit coming from? Like,
yeah, well, yeah, and I would agree with that. And flow state, I think it has to be. It's not always intentional, but I do think that to cultivate it, we have to try to reduce our stress and our expectations and all of that.
Sorry,
so,
the chair's going nuts right now.
That's okay. People are they'll deal.
I can't hear it.
I can hear it. Anyway, so to get into a flow state, and that is also decreasing our ego and our concept of what is a product. And so I do think that there's something to flow and letting yourself, allowing, I like that word, allowing yourself to try something you've never done. And to try something new.
A risk. During a painting
now,
I'm like, and I'm like, whoa, yeah. Like, it's scary. You can ruin the painting, but I've developed a technique where there's a lot of layers and you can fix it, especially in these abstract works. And I also, I'm really grateful that you can't always be in the flow state and you're going to have bad days, but I love that the practice of coming here to the studio, I'm increasing the odds and I'm taking responsibility and creating an environment to allow flow, to allow the space to be non-judgmental. And I've had so many times in my life where I don't have that anywhere. I don't have it in my relationships. I don't have it in my work. And luckily, maybe I work out or do something where I can just like deal with the stress. But it's a big part of like society. Like, we don't have flow state safe places.
Well, and that we could get into that.
Yeah.
I mean, there are.
But all these artists, that's all they do.
Yeah.
I love skateboarding art. Ed Templeton, let's talk about him. He's on my list.
Let's talk about Ed Templeton, Basquiat, I can't say
Everybody
it.
loves
Picasso.
him. I mean, Picasso, Basquiat.
Bauhaus.
Maybe I'm saying that wrong. Bauhaus I put in there because of design and my graphic design.
Sure.
We're soaking in it, deconstruction. I also have Paul Klee because I was doing some art and influenced by the collective consciousness, and then I went back and saw, wow, my stuff looks really similar to these artists.
Oh, wow.
So in a way, unaware of it, I was creating things that are like that. Alex Gray I put in there because of his transcendent art, and I really got into him, and that opened me up into different ways of thinking. I believe his art's called, gosh darn it. There's a certain word, not transcendental. his art, it's a whole movement of art now where it's art where it shows people meditating. It shows people on their chakras.
Oh, okay.
It shows a lot of Eastern stuff. It shows a trip. It shows disjointed brains. It shows like an explosion of the human form.
Wow.
And that art, I can't believe I'm forgetting the word.
That's okay. I was actually going to probably put some of these links in the show notes, some of your influences in my description, and also your website where people can buy your art. We're not done, but I'm going to put that in there as well, because I know you have multiple places to buy your art, not only on Instagram, but also on multiple websites. But I'm excited to know about that. I like...
Mystic, it's a visionary artist.
Okay.
Visionary art is pretty hot right now, and I hate to talk like that, like I'm a salesman, but
it's okay.
I'm aware of culture, and visionary art's almost going to move into something else here soon. With all these like vision mapping and projection art that's going on, that's the cool thing about art. It's telling us unequivocally,
I can't.
Yeah, it's telling us undeniably what the psyche of the collective conscious hive mind is doing and wants. Or not wants. Yeah, wants. So, when we go back to my earlier influences, it was more in the body struggle, like Ed Templeton and his skateboard art. The drawings, Toy Machine of this frog, it's like just human suffering, but in a very funny, charming characters and drawings. And he influenced me greatly. Skateboard culture, I'd probably be called a poser. I did skate in LA, and I was able to skateboard. I just love the mentality, and I've always seen skateboarders as kind of the highest athletes, because I would always tell people, you can go practice a free throw for hours and miss and have shame and all the frustration, but you won't break your arm. A skateboarder has to practice insane moves and have body control, and there's a great risk that you're going to get injured. But if you get injured doing something, you usually stop. You have to do that same trick tens of thousands of times, of times, to conquer your fear and master the body form. And there's just fearless people, and I think it creates those people in flow state, and it creates people with kind of a they see like the on-off, right-wrong as a joke, because they've gone through this practice of, I have to overcome all these things and just be able to flow with my body.
Well, it's partly mental. Like we've
totally
talked
mental.
about a lot of sports. Obviously, you have to have the physique and the endurance, which is the structure. The structure is practicing and endurance, but a lot of it is also the second part, which is flow and the mental ability to let go. And I mean, we've even talked. An easy example is golf. You actually don't have to be that in shape to play golf.
Oh, but it's so frustrating.
You have
it's
to
like
be
impossible.
in shape mentally to play golf. And I think an interesting thing was that Tiger Woods existed in a state for a long time where he was the best golfer and he was precise and he was just locked in. And then when he had all these personal problems with his marriage and substances and mental health, well, what happened was he became quite terrible at golf, even though he had the best form and all of that. It's a mental thing. And so
but all the gold in his
body.
dark side was learned from it. Yeah.
Well, he might have. I haven't read up on all that. I was just going to use him as an
to
example.
go on an earlier theory that
Well,
I'm going to be spouting at people uncontrollably over caffeinated for the next month.
If he
practice,
if he, like anyone else,
cash out your shadow.
He's had to face his shadow publicly. So if he faces his shadow publicly and he moves all the way through the dark place,
he will. I think he will, because all that discipline to become that great, it'll click and he'll be like, wow, that taught me the most.
Well, he has a choice. That's the hard part about
Tiger, you'll do it.
Yeah. Go get him. He has a choice, like
your name's
everyone
Tiger,
else.
For Christ's sake.
Go get him, Tiger.
Tiger.
You have a choice, though, because a lot of people go into the dark place and see their shadow and they run from it and they over-medicate and they don't want to, go there. So, yeah, I would say that I hope he does, because I think he could inspire a lot of people to come back, and not just in golf, but in mental.
In Greek mythology.
So we've got limited time here.
Sure. Ed Templeton kicks ass.
Before lunch hour.
Kicks ass. Paul Klee's
This is like a bullet point thing now. I want to talk real quick about...
Or do you want me to
go to
current,
current, past, and then quotes. Let's go there.
Oh yeah. It was interesting that you did this quote thing, and it made me think, and I went and picked up some quotes. But a lot of them, more of them are philosophers.
That's okay.
My favorite
I
quotes.
like philosophy.
But I did go look for an artist's quote. I think I found a Paul Klee quote. And it's really interesting. I brought up that flow state, and I found that myself in this podcast discussion. But his quote says, "Everything vanishes around me, flow state, and my works are born as if out of the void, flow state. Ripe, graphic fruits fall off.
Flow state.
My hand has become the obedient instrument of a remote will." Paul Klee.
Paul Klee.
And I've got goosebumps.
And we
I've got
added
podcast goosebumps
we added
inside
the flow
the
state.
podcast. Yeah.
I love that. And I think the best songs I've ever written, and I think you'll say some of the best paintings and art you've done has been something that caught you by surprise.
Some of the best street fights.
And it
some of
reminds
the
me-
best
street
omelets
fights.
ever made. Yeah,
Some of the
just
best omelets. Well, it actually
flow
reminds
state.
me of Elizabeth Gilbert. You know who she is? She's a writer.
No.
She wrote Big Magic. And in her book, she talked about how she believes the collective unconscious or conscious or whatever you want to call it is constantly sending out ideas. And it's a matter of you being open to listening to the idea and being able to put it down before somebody else gets it. And I can think of a few times like this. I remember, and this is a shout out to my wife who's always thinking of ideas. I remember this is before Uber and Lyft were even in San Francisco.
Yeah.
About 2 years before. I had gotten a cab from the airport, and it was really annoying, and I had a big hassle with the cab driver, and it was only 2 miles, and I was going to pay the flat fee, and then anyway, it was just terrible, and the guy was trying to rip me off, etc.
Yeah.
And my wife said,
Yeah.
there's so many students here at Arizona State. What if we made some sort of app or forum where you could say, hey, I'm coming into the airport at 3 o'clock.
Rideshare, yeah.
Who could pick me up? And I'll give you $10. And I was like, that is genius.
Yeah.
And then 6 months later, all of a sudden, I read in the New York Times, Lyft launches in San Francisco, Uber, and it's a rideshare app. And I was like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
And then also, that was my first example. I can't remember the second example. But Elizabeth Gilbert in her book talks about how she had this whole story about that she had had a conception of, and she had written up all this draft about this person. Is very specific, a person in South America that was researching a certain disease during a certain historical period, and blah, blah, blah. And then she had met this woman at a writers conference, and they had this moment where they were just hugging and felt this connection in a weird way, but just like friends. And then 2 weeks later or something like that, the woman called her in New York, because Elizabeth lives in New York, and she said, hey, oh my gosh, I had this vision for this book, and I've been writing incessantly for 3 days. Here's what it's about. And it was the same book. Elizabeth Gilbert had her computer files, which had not left her apartment. She didn't bring them to this writers' conference.
Ideas.
Same idea, almost literally the same historical period, the same country, the same scenario, and almost the same plot tropes, and they had never discussed it, and they had never met before that writers' conference. That is weird.
That's weird. But but I won't make it binary.
We won't make it binary. I don't know what it is, and we could. And
You made it binary.
We could be all like, "Oh, skeptic's guide to blah 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 blah. Let's be skeptical. That's just a coincidence." Well, sure, it's a coincidence, but it's also interesting, and I think that makes life interesting. To not know why that happened, and maybe whatever it was, who knows what it was? Energy transfer. So let's talk about real quick your current exploration and past influence. We'll end with a couple quotes.
Well, can I sneak another Terrence McKenna quote
let's go
I see about art? And it's kind of like I picked them in a rush, but they're totally fitting for what we talked. Art's task is to save the soul of mankind. Anything less is a dithering while Rome burns.
I like that. Art's task is to save the soul of mankind.
Anything less is a dithering.
Wow.
Like
While
you're
Rome
just
burns.
toiling for no reason.
Well,
while Rome burns, and everyone's like, "Oh, this is it for America." Like they're comparing. I've heard it for years now. In the last 5-10 years, we've had a good run. Something's going to change, and maybe you feel like it's going to change because people are so afraid of socialism. But we're already kind of soaking in some socialistic things for business. Anyways, so then where were we going? Did you want another?
Well,
Well, look at this other one. The main thing to understand is that we are imprisoned in some kind of work of art.
and it's a way of seeing the world as a work of art and as something where we're seeking soul.
Terrence says in prison because of his
his philosophy is
his psychedelic journeys. He's like, what are these things? What is reality?
Sure.
Surely it's a piece of art. He's also implying there that it's a creator, some kind of work of art, something created.
And I like that because I just threw my perspective on there, which was are we living in a work of art that's a way of seeing the world versus seeing the world as toiling and pulling a rock and putting it up the hill every day.
Well, imprisoned.
Well, yeah,
he's kind of like
he's got
trapped. That for me, imprisoned means he's kind of like.
Well, we are.
He's still he's on that ascension tip too. He wants to move through.
So
he wants to break on through to the other
as we
side.
wrap up here before lunch hour.
Herman Melville.
I wanted to touch on Herman Melville because
Marshall McLuhan.
I remember Herman Melville discussion at
Shattering
a
my
art
soul.
gallery that was a very strange warehouse in Van Buren Avenue or whatever it was, and I introduced you to my all-time
mentor.
Well, he's not. He's an local artist and also a social worker who is obsessed with Herman Melville.
Yeah.
And then you guys bonded. I think he had a Moby Dick shirt on.
Right. And I told him about one of my favorite books. I tell so many people about this book, and I forget the name of the book. It's insane.
By Herman Melville?
No, it's a book about why to read books. And I read this book that these two, highly educated people wrote of Shining, all things Shining, understanding the Western canon or whatever. Something like that book. Because I read it, and it tells you why to read, or one theory on why to read, and it went through literature from Greek, monotheistic, Dante. It went down history in the Western canon, and it just blew my mind. And he started talking about Moby Dick. I mean, James Joyce, blah blah blah. Not blah blah blah, but like
sure.
I don't mean to sound like I'm rattling off stuff I know a lot about, but I know a little bit. And I read Moby Dick and Herman Melville, and I became obsessed. And Moby Dick like ripped my soul spine out of my body. Like I was reading it every night. I was like posting quotes from it on Facebook.
Sure.
I was freaking out about it. It was way better than any band I've been in. Like, no, that's not true. It was just this experience where I'm like, and what is he doing? What is he saying? And it's a dense book. It's a
very
denser
metaphorical,
book.
Archetypal.
Yeah, and it's a thicker book, and I loved every minute of it. It was like being at my favorite restaurant every night because I overcompensate by eating. But like I was overcompensating by like trying to read Moby Dick, and it wasn't. It was good. It was a practice. Reading's a practice.
It is.
It was a good place to be, and it just like put a lot of space between thoughts. And it's like when I was into Kabbalah, it's like I'll get into these things and I'll just be kind of engrossed and swept away. But as far as like Ishmael, Queequeg, I mean, the main points from Herman Melville, I'd rather spend the night with a noble savage than a savage noble. They start the novel with him having to share a room with Queequeg, the harpooner.
Right.
Ishmael does. And, the wonderment of how this person's just so nice and he doesn't have judgment. Queequeg, he's just this robust human male soul, and he's just anyways, without doing a podcast on a Moby Dick. And then I read a couple other of his books and tried to learn more about Herman Melville. And Herman Melville to me is interesting too because he was a patent clerk. There wasn't always success. His biggest book, here I am obsessed with success again. But it's very interesting to see these canonized artists, and that's it, man. It's just a journey. Just keep working and
read Marshall McLuhan. We won't. Do we have any juice to go on Marshall McLuhan?
Yeah, I got tons of juice.
1 minute.
Well, the Mechanical Bride, advertising. I just love Marshall McLuhan, even though he's kind of outside of canonized academia. I love those guys. I love Terence McKenna. I love Marshall McLuhan. I think he's still going strong with predicting social media, the global village. He's still going so strong as far as Instagram, virtual reality, everything. The medium is the message. And, I learned about James Joyce through Marshall McLuhan. And then it's just, I bought the book, Finnegan's Wake. Of course, I couldn't read it. I bought the key made by Campbell. There's keys made so you can understand how to read the book. And it's just, there it is. It's just more, these luminaries are showing me other avenues of humanity and thought. James Joyce, I think, sorry everyone, we're going to end on me talking about James Joyce because I
love James Joyce.
I'm not an expert, and I've only almost tried to read that one book, but I have had very weird spiritual dreams about being in the book.
Which one, Finnegan's Wake or Ulysses? Or
Finnegan's Wake. I
Okay.
had dreams about parts of it that I was trying to understand. Anyways, it's cool. That stuff's cool.
And I'm gonna.
That's fun.
Sorry,
great ending.
I had to read I read James Joyce Dubliners, and I read part of Ulysses. I did not crack Finnegan's Wake because I've heard it takes 3 years to read it because it's so dense, and he used 27 different languages.
What he did is a feat in itself, and it's easier to listen to McKenna or McLuhan talk about it.
Yeah, and what can we learn from it? And so. I like this quote to end on. Not only is it not right, it's not even wrong, which is Wolfgang Pauli. And I think that's part of what this podcast was about mental health, art, philosophy, ways of living, experimentation, practice, and also trying to reduce our judgments and projections and being able to learn and from a variety of sources, but also understanding how our own perspective or our own vintage or bottle of wine or our own grapes have influenced how we interpret things, and being able to have the humility to go in. I mean, that's a constant battle, to be able to have that humility to go inside and look at your shadow, and and then understanding that that's part of it, and also setting goals and working on your practice. So thank you, Doug, for letting me into this awesome studio here in 7th Avenue in Phoenix. Woo! And
Studio
we'll be
G.
posting Studio G.
Yeah.
We'll be posting links to Doug's art and a lot of the things referenced in this podcast in the show notes. And that's a wrap.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you, Doug.
Normalize the signal and you're banging on Freon. Paleolithic Eon. Put the fake goatee on, and it booms as cool as sugar-free jazz. Schoolsy bombs.
You've enjoyed this episode of the Intentional Clinician podcast. I know I did. And check out some of the links to things Doug was talking about in the show notes if you'd like to. I'd like to thank everyone who's been listening to The Intentional Clinician. It's really an honor for me to put this podcast out, and I really love doing it. I was at a conference in New Orleans this last weekend, and I actually met a few people that listened to my podcast. So shout out to you guys. Thanks so much for encouraging me. I really felt honored that you came up and introduced yourself. And I also met some cool professors and different people there as well that we may have on future episodes. So that was very exciting. And if you want to support the podcast and you're a therapist looking for electronic medical record software, I would recommend Simple Practice. So I have an affiliation with Simple Practice. And you can click my link in the show notes. And essentially what it is it gives you a 30-day trial to check it out, to attend their free trainings, to read their information. And if you like it and you subscribe, then that becomes a way to sponsor the podcast. I like Simple Practice, otherwise I wouldn't utilize it in any sort of advertising. And I've used a lot of EMR systems. So if you're looking for that, I found them quite easy to use and also friendly. So there's that. As I said before, I am in private practice in Grand Rapids, and I'm very excited to announce in the next episode we'll be talking all about the Trauma-Informed Counseling Center of Grand Rapids that I'm opening this year as part of Health for Life Grand Rapids, where I am gathering and helping join forces with lots of therapists who are doing trauma-specific interventions for people suffering and drawing together like-minded individuals to create a center of excellence. So I'm excited about that and going to get help from my mentors and different people in the EMDR community and some professors I know. So I'm very excited about that, and stay tuned. You can find out details on healthforlifegr.com. And if you are in need of counseling or are looking for a counselor and you're in the Grand Rapids area, feel free to contact my office at 616-200-4433 or go to healthforlifegr.com. We've got a bunch of great counselors with different specialties at our place. If you are in crisis, remember, listening to this podcast is not a substitute for treatment, and if you're actually in a real crisis, you should call 911 or the National Suicide Prevention Line at 1-800-273-8255. If you're not in the Grand Rapids area, I would recommend that you call around and find a counselor or go on psychologytoday.com or even counseling.org, emdr.com. Just ask around and look for a trusted person that can be your counselor. And yeah, that's what I've got to say right now, and I really appreciate, again, everyone listening. It means a lot. If you could have any food right now, what would you have?
Pizza.
What kind of pizza?
Veggie pizza.
Why would you have veggie pizza?
Because it's more healthy than meaty pizzas.
Where would you go to get said pizza?
Peter Piper. It's right up the road.
Is that
Actually,
because it's the closest place?
I don't know. There's a pizza buffet up there I haven't tried. And
I don't trust buffets.
yeah, they're like, don't do it. A couple friends are like, don't do it. But, you know.
But what if you had unlimited money? Where would you get pizza right now?
If money wasn't an issue, my personal chef would be following me with a mobile grill.
How about this? Somebody gave you a $100 gift card and they said you can only spend it on pizza in Phoenix. Where would you get it?
Oh, I see what you're doing. Pino's right down the street is so good.
Ooh, okay.
Have you heard of Pino's?
No, I've only had Cibo's.
Pino's is like right down here in Thomas, and it's insane. It's the crust is so delicious.
Do they have gluten-free? Because I have problems.
I don't know.
All right, well, I might just go off the wagon.
It's so good. Their salads are good. It's a mom and pop shop.
Ooh, Pino's.
It's not cheap.
What street is it on?
It's on Thomas right here. If you just turn right and head down, you know where Z Pizza is?
Yeah, I remember I used to go to Z Pizza.
It's just a little west of Z Pizza.
Okay.
Pino's.
I like it.
It's really good. My friend Irma, I don't know if you met Irma. I
remember Irma.
She got me in here.
Oh.
By the grace of a miracle of the universe or whatever.
Sure.
And we went there and we're just like, oh. She a lot of people, Phoenix people, know about it for years.
Pino's. Okay.
It's not like super trendy popular. It's just like nice family. It's like a nice restaurant trying to be nice.
I like nice restaurants that are nice.
It's not really pretentious, and the pizza's really good, and I'd go there.
And if you could order one, it would be the veggie because it tastes better or because it's healthier?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't care. It's pizza. No.
Yeah. Pizza.
Yeah, like I'm
the universal language of food.
I'm trying to not eat as much meat.
Well,
I still
me
eat
too.
some, but
I eat a little meat on the weekends. I'm a weekend meat
it's
eater.
like I'll do salads and smoothies. Right now I'm trying to lose some weight and cleanse. So.
There you go. Okay, hold on one second.